What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with my best songs of 2023, my top 10 songs of 2023. Of course, see the links below for my top 10 albums of the year and my top 10 K-pop songs of the year as well. And of course, come back for my best shows and movies, top 10s as well. But yeah, talking songs this year in music. Notably, I chose artists I did not represent in my albums list, so keep that in mind. And all these songs, I talked about the albums they were on, so more in-depth discussion of those projects. Come back, youtube.com/nostalgiapod if you're looking for a bit more. But I'm going to overall kind of go through these songs a bit quickly because I've already talked about all of them. But yeah, let's get into that top 10. I think overall, this is a year that, I think more than anything, I think about songs specifically, right? I mean, the success of songs continues to be dominated by playlists and TikTok. And I think for me, sampling, like the overt nature of really heavily referenced samples, became really big this year. Think of songs like Jungkook's 7. That song is essential to its sample. The Saturday Love sample, of course. Nicki Minaj had several really high profile samples. You had Annalie Choppa basically redoing Nelly's Hot in here. The list goes on. This is a trend that is far from new to this year only, but I feel like it almost came to a head a little bit. That being said, I'm not above picking a song with an overt sample. There's one or two of those on my list, I have to acknowledge. Nonetheless, to me, that's kind of the big takeaway with singles this year. And the safeness that I think labels and producers and A&Rs feel when they use a song that has a recognizable sample, where listeners hear that hook, and that hook is literally the hook of something they already know, something that's familiar, and thus that appeals to them because it feels safe and comforting. And in a sense, that's not what we want from art. Not that there aren't awesome uses of samples. Of course, we know the long storied history of sampling in music, particularly in rap, of course. Nonetheless, something to keep an eye on for sure, because that's been, to me, the biggest trend. So yeah, let's get into my top 10. I'll talk about some honorable mentions as well at the end. But yeah, number 10 for me is Brent Faiyaz's song Upset, featuring Tommy Rickman and Felix. Yeah, Brent Faiyaz, he's been on my list, album or song, the past 2 years at this point. Last year was his album Wasteland. The year before that, his song Gravity. I'm a huge fan of Brent. To me, Brent runs male R&B. He is the face of that scene. Incredibly impressive, given the fact that he's been a independent, self-made man to this point. Just inked a very lucrative distribution deal with United Masters. Really well-deserved. And to me, I was like, do I pick another Brent song again? Kind of play the hits for my own list making. But I couldn't keep this song off my list, man. Brent's Upset. It is so goddamn catchy. I can't stop listening to it. Particularly the very beginning, when Brent says, say fuck it at the same damn time. Like, as that beat drops in, that part right there. Like, I don't even need to listen to the features all that much, because Brent is just levitating the first 90 seconds of this song. It makes me really happy because I think it's a really special track. Yeah, so shout out Brent. Don't want to belabor the point, but I just had to represent him again. What can I say? I am who I am. So Brent Faiyaz, Upset, number 10. Number 9 for me is Holly Humberstone's Flatlining off her debut album Paint My Bedroom Black. This is an artist I had actually, I think, no knowledge of at all coming into this year, and she definitely impressed me, and I think Flatlining is the clear highlight off that debut album and the best show of the future potential of Holly, who's still a very young artist. And, I think her influences for some of her peers, like Olivia Rodrigo, for example, with her songwriting ability, her ballad writing, that part's familiar. But when you listen to a song like Flatlining, particularly when the song starts to really rise and blossom, when the production and the tempo pick up and Holly's vocals become dubbed, and it almost has like a hyperpop influence to the performance side of it. That moment for me was like just kind of pure brilliance, and unlike anything else I really heard from other pop stars this year. And I think Paint My Bedroom Black is a really solid debut, but to me, Flatlining, that's a song that is the best proof of concept that there is at least another level for Holly Humberstone to take and to really rise up and become a force in pop. I wouldn't say she's a force yet, but that's a song that I think really stands out, and you could stack that up against really any pop star song this year. So shout out Holly Humberstone, Flatlining. Really came out of nowhere for me. Number 8 for me is Burna Boy's Sitting on Top of the World, featuring 21 Savage off his most recent album, I Told Them, from this past September. And yeah, this is a song that has a very high profile sample, namely the Top of the World sample by Brandy. And that sample is very present, very integral to the success of this song. In fact, the other big hit off Burna Boy's album this year, City Boys, very famously interpolating and speeding up the tempo to the production from Jeremiah's Birthday Sex. Burna Boy was in the sample bag this year. And I thought, do I pick the album for my album list? Do I pick one of the songs? What do I do? Burna Boy's Last, the single off his album Love to Me last year, that was my number one song of the year. That was a triumphant, jubilant, happy, good time song that I absolutely adore to this day. I was like, do I pick Burna Boy again? Just like how do I pick Brenton again? Do I pick someone I've picked before, picked recently? And Sitting on Top of the World, man, that is a song that I just revisited to a ton. It's a really effective use of the sample. I think the Burna Boy performance is awesome and makes it more than just the sample itself that you're revisiting. And then it's a really fun 21 feature. There's a version of the song that exists without 21, which I think is perfectly good as well. But 21, he's never bad, man. In fact, he really fits this well. He gives you just a different type of energy to Burna Boy. And yeah, I think this is a banger. This is something that got Grammy nominated. I was very happy to see that. And yeah, despite the fact that the sample from Brandy is so integral to the success of the song, it's a banger. What can I say? Number 7 for me is Modern Jam by Travis Scott. Travis Scott's Utopia, after 5 years of hype since Astroworld, ultimately it's an album that I was disappointed by, even if it has some high points. And the biggest high point of all with Utopia for me was clearly Modern Jam, because this is a song that so effortlessly invokes the feeling you got from Kanye West's Black Skinhead off Yeezus. Yeezus, of course, where Travis Scott became known to most of us with that early feature on Up On It. I'm In It. And to me, Modern Jam, just that beat, which is notably produced by Guy Manuel, formerly of Daft Punk, NBD, that beat is so pulsing and so fun, and Travis's performance is just so energetic and so fitting the beat. And we know how energetic Travis is as a performer, but in the studio, he's more of a vibes guy at times. We know that. He elevates his songs when he performs live. I can speak to that personally, having seen him live. Nonetheless, Modern Jam, this shit's already hype as fuck in the studio version. I can't wait to see this song live, because to me, this was kind of just a moment of brilliance on an album that overall was pretty up and down for me. Shout out Modern Jam. When it gives you the feeling of something that you really love, in this case, Yeezus for me, what can I say? It's effective. Number 6 for me is Psychedelic Switch from Rae Jepsen off her latest album, The Loveliest Time, which is the B-sides album to her most recent, to this point, album, The Loneliest Time. And Rae, this whole releasing 2 albums together, A and B side type projects. She did it with Emotion. She did it with the other set of albums too. This is her thing, right? And I definitely like this version better than the previous version. I like The Loveliest Time more than The Loneliest Time. And the biggest highlight of all was Psychedelic Switch, which kind of came out of nowhere because Rae hasn't really made a song like this before, where this is a pulsing, like almost house song, like almost trancey beat at times. But Rae, I think her energy, just as a singer, the lightness, like the fluff that she can add to a beat like this, it's kind of unlike anyone else. She's one of those pop stars that's not the absolute A-list, but has a very dedicated fan base and has been really steady at this point. And she deserves a lot of credit for just how great she has been post the Call Me Maybe virality. And a song like Psychedelic Switch, to me, this is like she doesn't have bangers like this, to be honest. This is not the type of music she usually makes. So, this really came out of nowhere for me when it was a lead single, and it's really kind of stuck around with me just as a, I think, really fun to revisit type track. So shout out Rae, man. I don't think I've ever picked an album first for my list before, but this is a song that just kind of wowed me just for how unexpected it was for me, given my previous relationship with her as an artist. Number 5 for me is OMG by NewJeans. Of course, this song topped my top 10 K-pop songs of the year. See the link below for 10 through 2 if you missed it. But this really came as no surprise to me. This was I feel like almost certain to be the number one K-pop song of the year when I first heard it, and really catapulted, continued rather the rapid rise of NewJeans, who only now at this point are a year and a half into their careers, and there was a lot of good picks to pick from them this year. I consider ETA as well. You'll see Super Shy on a lot of people's list. That's not a song I'm as high on as others. Ditto won a lot of awards as well for them. No, to me, OMG was kind of the clear choice from them. And NewJeans, they're the K-pop artist of the year for me. And they kind of rose beyond the general K-pop limitations that others of their peers and in the past have faced, where NewJeans gets love everywhere. They're getting love in Asia for doing what they're doing, but also finding a ton of success in the United States and in the West. Look no further than the rapturous reception they got to their first live performance in the States at Lollapalooza earlier this summer. And I think it's a song that has just a ton of like earworm, like grabbing moments, such as Hani's chorus or like the bridge, Never Let Him Go part from Heron, like really great vocal stuff, And I think in general, it's continuing the trend that NewJeans started last year, where they are a K-pop group not doing the traditional kind of played out girl crush concept, but by going more traditional, more nostalgic, and incorporating some really interesting production choices such as Jersey Club, they are really pushing the genre forward and doing something unlike basically anyone else at the time. And despite all of the fact that all of them are still teenagers, like they're very young women, and yet I think they're just making tremendous pop music. And OMG really stuck with me from the beginning of the year. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't recognize NewJeans after the year they just had. And yeah, OMG, number 5 for me. And of course, see the links below for my best K-pop of the year, where I talked at length about this song as well. Number 4 for me is Namesake by No Name off her latest album, Sundial, from this past August. Sundial was a long time coming because the previous No Name album was back in 2018. We had been waiting. And No Name's an artist who gets a lot of attention for not being afraid to speak her mind, but also, to her credit, puts that in her music in really eloquent and impressive ways, unlike few people can. And Namesake, to me, is the clear highlight off Sundial, and one of the best songs No Name's ever made, because this is a song that is really fun to revisit, really lively beat, really like awesome song, and yet lyrically, this is a song where No Name is flaming people like Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce for performing at the Super Bowl, affiliating themselves with the NFL. And in general, she's very critical of capitalism and consumerism encroaching itself into art and into black spaces. And yet, this is a song where No Name is not doing this in a very preachy and grating way, because she's the first person to admit that she has these contradictions herself, basically lambasting herself for performing at Coachella this year after saying she would never do that and selling out basically to get a bag. And I think the fact that No Name is not afraid to throw grenades at people she thinks deserve said grenade, and at the same time isn't afraid to point out her own contradictions and own insecurities and own misgivings and failings about herself in the very next breath, that to me is what's so impressive, because she can take it as well as dish it out with this kind of judgmental music. And in general, she's just a very talented rapper. Like, I mean, lyrically, she's up there with the absolute best of them, but I think this is a song that really captures the duality of what kind of artist she is in a very impressive way. And also the song is fun to listen to. So what more do you want from an artist like her? I was really impressed with this. Number 3 for me is Sprinter by Central C and Dave, a UK rap super project as a result, giving us this. This was the lead single off it. You have arguably the best rapper right now in the UK, a status that's been held for him by some time, in Dave, and then clearly the hottest and most rapidly rising UK rapper right now in Central C, and you have them combined together. Central C is able to hang with the bars with someone of the caliber of Dave. That is no small feat. And I think Sprinter, despite the fact that it's almost understated how they're going about their bars, both of them, man, the flexing on this is so damn good. And I think some of the lines from Central C I think are really awesome too. Like, it's only been a year since I had these millions. And then there's really funny quotables like, I just put 9 gallons of Sprinter. I mean, honestly, like, there was nothing more blockbuster, nothing more box office with UK rap than you had with this song. And uh, it's incredible how big it got in the United States, to be honest. Central C's popularity in the West helping catapult Dave to his biggest success over here to the date. And more than anything, and I've been saying this a lot lately, I've been so impressed with how Central C has integrated himself into the American music scene in a way no British rapper ever has before. It's incredibly impressive how big he's got. You've seen Drake take Central C under his wing at this point. But this is a song that's up there with the best song Central C has ever made, I would say. And even though it's far from the most potent lyrically song Dave's ever made, man, it's just like a really fun banger. It's really fun to revisit, and it's on a good project that has a bunch of other good songs too. So yeah, shout out Dave, shout out Central C. I never expected to get this, and we actually kind of got a follow-up in a certain sense of another blockbuster, albeit of a smaller caliber, later in the year when we had the K-Trap Heady 1 mixtape. But clearly, if you're talking about UK collabs, you have to start with Dave and Central C with Sprinter. Number 2 for me is Paint the Town Red by Doja Cat, the lead single off her latest album, Scarlet. I considered Scarlet on my albums list. I considered a different song on the list instead, such as Agora Hills, which was a huge highlight. But I kept coming back to Paint the Town Red, which I think is just one of the best songs Doja's ever made. It's so funny because the lead up to this album, and she was talking about how critical she had been of her past music, and she didn't think her bars were up to snuff, and she's going to do more rapping, and flaming her fans and doing all the Doja Cat things. Check my album review. There's a lot to get into with that. But then she gives you Paint the Town Red, where she just flexes on everyone because these are awesome bars. The song is so catchy. It became a TikTok smash sensation anyway. And she didn't even need all the fans that allegedly left her because this was one of the biggest songs of her entire career. To me, it's an absolute banger. The bars are there. And I've always been a believer in Doja Cat's bars. I'm a big fan of hers. I had Planet Her in my top 10 albums of 2021, the previous album. And to me, this was a huge, arguably the biggest flex in rap this year was Doja dropping Paint the Town Red after everything that had happened between her and her fan base. And it's one of the happiest TikTok trends I've seen. Like she's a devil, she a bad little bitch, she a rebel. That part being a TikTok trend, honestly deserved, because that part's catchy as hell, but the whole song is good. Shout out Doja Cat. Number 1, which I don't think many people will have this as their number 1. This is my most played song on Spotify in 2023. That would be Popular by The Weeknd, featuring Madonna and Playboi Carti off the HBO series The Idol soundtrack. This song is reminiscent of Justin Timberlake in Timbaland in the mid-2000s. That production, those 808s, they are humming. Weeknd absolutely spazzing on the song, sounds great. One of the catchiest songs of the year, probably to me the catchiest song of the year, given how much I listened to it. It's so funny to me because The Idol on HBO ultimately was a creative failure. I talked about that series at length. The best thing about The Idol overall was the music that came out of it independent of the show. Popular, as well as the Lily Rose Depp song World Class Sinner. Troye Sivan's acting somehow being better than The Weeknd and Jenny of Blackpink's. All these disparate things. And yet what I kept coming back to is the fact that Popular was one of the best songs The Weeknd had made in some time. And I think a pretty fun and complimentary Madonna feature, and kind of throw away ad-libby-esque Cardi performance aside, this is what we want from The Weeknd. This is him at his absolute strength. And frankly, I would love him to do more with this kind of production. Again, giving you those Timbaland vibes, giving you those 2000s vibes. Doing more of that, I think, will be really exciting. But ultimately, this is just a earworm of all earworms, and to me, it was the biggest one of all in 2023. So shout out Popular, man. I have an Instagram reel on my IG that I used this song for, which I'm pretty proud of as well. Nonetheless, those are my top 10 songs. I'm going to get into my honorable mentions as well. But first, Top 10, again, Brent Faiyaz, Upset, Holly Humberstone's Flatlining, Burna Boy, Sitting on Top of the World, Travis Scott's Modern Jam, Carly Rae Jepsen's Psychedelic Switch, NewJeans' OMG, No Name Namesake, David Central C's Sprinter, Doja Cat's Paint the Town Red, and then The Weeknd's Popular. Honorable mentions. So, Troye Sivan's Rush is one of the best songs of the year. I would have had that on my top 10, but I picked the album for my album of the year instead, so I couldn't do both. Similarly, Sampha's Only, I would have picked here, but I picked the album instead. Dominic Fike's Frisky, picked the album instead. Bad Idea, right? Get Him Back by Olivia Rodrigo, picked the album instead. Problem Fixer by Jay Huss, picked the album instead. Also want to shout out Gunna's Fuck You Mean. What a comeback single after everything that guy had been through. Meridian by Dave and Tay Cola. That was awesome. Kenny Mason's Dracula. I'm Just Ken by Ryan Gosling off the Barbie soundtrack. Satanist by Boy Genius. What It Is by Doechii. Looking for Love by Disclosure. All My Life by Lil Durk and J. Cole. What a surprise that one is. What Would Pluto Do? My favorite song from Drake off For All the Dogs. It Goes Like Na 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 by Peggy Gao. Shout out EDM. Ski Yee by Sexy Red. Cobra by Megan Thee Stallion. Try Me by Georgia Smith. Candle Flame by Jungle and Eric Ark Elliott. What a house banger that is. I mentioned World Class Sinner by Lily Rose Depp. Tinashe's None of My Business. Kaleidless Contact. And yeah, see the links below for my top 10 K-pop songs of the year. It's another 10 songs I liked quite a bit. Of course, make sure you check out the album list as well. And make sure you come back for my top TV shows and top movies as well. And for more reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.